1 or 2 generations ago, it somehow seemed like the summer holidays always coincided with mango season, and we were forever outdoors eating mangoes in the summer. Mango was such a part of our everyday life. It was woven into our folklore and our storytelling traditions.
Remember the Osimo joke? When Osimo froze toes behind one ripe mango, he couldn't get it. He climbed it, he smelled it, he touched it, he say it ripe, and he gone back down throwing more stones at the mango instead of picking it right there on the tree, you know?
In those days, mango was everywhere and in abundance, and it seemed to represent a time of freedom and gaiety.
Avant mango take a bon manipu, take a sweat pity, you know, it tells you something about where we esteem mango. Mango is a time we have plenty.
Where did they come from? How did they get here? And what is the link between the mango and how we can strengthen our resilience in the face of climate change?
Began in where we call Burma and in the foothills of the Himalayas, East India. Hence the name Mangifera indica. So you got the name because it was named after India. Indica meaning India. Mangifera, it's a chemical compound in it. How did it come to this part of the world? Because it is not native to this part of the world. It was the Portuguese who brought it to West Africa and Brazil during the time of the discovery, so-called discovery. But it was really an encounter because you cannot discover people.
It has become firmly rooted, literally and figuratively, in our culture, in our agriculture, you know, in our economy, so to speak.
Since the mid-1700s, mango has remained the most popular fruit in St. Lucia. It's consumed as a fruit, as jams and jelly, juiced, or the ever-popular mango salad. Recent counts put the number of varieties in St. Lucia at over 60. Very few can recall over 20 at any one time. How many varieties can you remember? Research shows that there are tens of thousands of mango trees in St. Lucia.
Based on the 2007 agricultural census, there are about 60,000 mango trees on the island, 66,000 really, and about 60,000 bearing trees.
Mango was never fully established as an export crop like sugarcane and bananas, but it did provide revenue for farmers who sold at local markets or who exported regionally. Barbados, the Caribbean islands, the United Kingdom and the United States became promising markets until the mango seed weevil and the fruit fly virtually killed the export trade. Traditionally, mangoes were concentrated along riverbanks, ridges, steep slopes and roadsides. In the process of clearing their land, farmers, unfortunately, significantly reduced the mango tree population. This would eventually increase St. Lucia's vulnerability to natural disasters in an era of climate change. We saw the evidence during recent violent hurricanes and quite starkly during huge rainfall events from Hurricane Tomas and the Christmas Eve trough. Proof indeed that climate change had become our reality. We know the seasons have become unpredictable, and we hear of climate change, global warming, and greenhouse gases. How are these connected? What exactly causes climate change?
We speak of greenhouse gases, and those are the gases that we find in the atmosphere through the process of industrialization, where you have many more factories emitting those gases, and you also have transportation sector with many more vehicles on the roads, in the air, on the sea, everywhere. Those gases are forming a blanket in the upper atmosphere, a blanket that is preventing the heat from escaping to space. So while a lot of the heat is supposed to escape, now a lot of it is being trapped in the earth and causing us to get warmer. And we speak of global warming.
We have progressed very quickly from the gaiety of mangoes to the gloomy and somber tones of climate change.
The projections that we have for our region, and more importantly for St. Lucia, are that we expect to see declining rainfall over the coming decades.
As small island developing states that contribute negligibly to greenhouse gases, our figure for St. Lucia, I believe, is 0.0015%, very low. So we contribute very little, but we are impacted very much by climate change. And we have to do all that we can to be able to address the impact of climate change, to be able to adapt and to ensure our survival.
If we are able to one, plant trees to protect our soil, two, help to maintain our water supply, three, to provide a buffer, which is what mango trees do because of their root system in times of extreme weather. As we know, planting trees helps to reduce carbon emissions in the long term because trees, as they grow, absorb carbon dioxide. They sequester carbon, so to speak.
So for example, with reforestation, with trees, with planting of trees, you are able to have some of that carbon become sequestered or stored in those plants, in those trees.
Well, obviously, there is a connection between mangoes and adapting to climate change. The stark reality is that our lands are being lost to landslides triggered by heavy or prolonged rains. Consequently, our homes are threatened, our agricultural lands are being washed away gradually, and our water sources becoming silted or are drying up. Our farmers have a responsibility to help minimize the impacts of climate change, and one way of doing so is by planting lots of trees, including mango trees.
One of the things with mangoes is usually when a mango grows naturally, like most crops, if you plant watermelons and all the other varieties, if you do direct seed, the seed material produces what is called a taproot. And that taproot grows and the growth does not stop. It's a vertical growth. When a plant is propagated in a propagation station, by the time a few months would have passed, which is the time that you usually spend in a propagation station, the taproot now begins to wrap itself at the bottom of the bag. When that plant is placed on a slope and that sort of stuff, what happens is that wrapped root now, rather than continue in a vertical growth, begins to produce lateral growth. At the end of the day, what happens, a seed that would have grown naturally would have gone deeper and would have established itself more firmly in the ground. So one of the things that is done in some countries is that the local varieties are established by seed in a particular field. And when these have attained a particular height in the field, the grafters and so on come and they graft them in the field.
We've experienced the damage done to our slopes and hillsides, and also to riverbanks where huge chunks are washed away by heavy floods. Those hillsides and riverbanks can be protected and stabilized by replanting trees there. The Forestry Department is recommending planting a variety of tree crops in addition to the mangoes. The Forestry Department has been working with farmers in the Tamazo and Mabia Valley areas on reforesting riverbanks degraded by recent hurricanes.
You could plant mango as one of the crops, as well as other crops that could have an economic effect in that you could get mangoes for sale, as well as it will have an effect on wildlife. Wildlife, birds get fruits for food, as well as you will have different species with different root systems that feed at different levels and thus adding more resilience to the zone. You also have that shading of the river as well, which is important to reduce water loss through evapotranspiration, as well as to keep the river working in ecologically a proper manner.
A unique partnership has been developed between the Ministry of Agriculture, farmers, and the community. The trees were made available to farmers free of charge, with suggestions on how and where they should be planted. The fruit trees chosen were meticulously selected because of the range of eco-services they offer.
The palm namu, nutmeg, mahogany, breadfruit. So this is one of the mango trees which was planted in the activity I spoke about earlier. We planted a good few dozens in a line, and if you could see, this is one of the trees after 5 years almost fully grown, actually started bearing fruit already.
We've had a lot of landslides in areas, and when you look at the areas where the mango trees are, these areas remain really, really stable.
Well, we have no problems with landslips where we have mangoes. We've not had any problems.
Funny enough, the areas with the mangoes were more established. I had no landslides there.
The OACS is working with St. Lucia to replant areas most heavily hit by landslides, that is private lands and public spaces. The focus will be to use local varieties, particularly those which we are starting to see on the decline.
Really and truly, we cannot afford to lose those exotic species of mangoes.
Having many different varieties or different kinds of genes and ecosystems and species allows us to be resilient in the event that there is a climatic event or there is a disaster that we need to recover. It allows us to bounce back from those climatic events.
We've heard the phrase biodiversity a few times already. What exactly is biodiversity?
Biodiversity is biological diversity. It's the variety of living things, the plants, the animals, the places where they live. And it also refers to diversity at the genetic level, so the diversity within genes, within species, and within the different types of ecosystems that we have, the different habitats.
This is our buying depot where we buy from our farmers. And we buy Monday to Friday. I mean, on a weekly basis, we could sell over 1,000 kilos of mangoes, and we put mangoes in two varieties. It's either the exotic or regular. We would buy most of our mangoes green, and then they would go to the store green, and sometimes, you know, because mango carry high effluent gas, it will ripe, you know. Sometimes it would get ripe, but persons would pick up what they like at the store. We don't package it or anything and tell people they must take that package. They choose what they want at the store.
Increasingly, consumers are going after the mangoes that are bigger and fleshier.
For example, a mango long, we all know what mango long is. High with this lot of fiber. So when you eat a mango long, you're picking that for a couple hours afterwards. With a mango pond, there is none of that. And it's very sweet. So you put a mango long and a Tommy Atkins side by side, almost everybody would go after the Tommy Atkins. It's a bigger mango, that nice purplish color. It attracts people.
We were used to little mango, the mango wheelie, the tin and the palui and the long. But now you have a different type of mango, exotic mangoes that have nice flavor, a lot of flesh, a lot of juice, and people tend to go for that.
Farmers are taking note and replacing local varieties with newly introduced mangoes, such as the Tommy Atkins, imported from Florida, and those brought in by the Taiwanese.
The new varieties are bred with a higher level of sugar. Also, they are bred with different characteristics, for example, to resist soil-borne diseases.
On my own, I began planting Julie mangoes and the other varieties, for example, the Cabish, the Tommy Atkins, which there's already market for most of the time. So, and plus on the property there is also the local varieties, the little mango long and palwi, which to some extent is being exported by some individual importers to England. And they do quite well.
Even though the larger types are more popular, the local varieties have proven to be better at resisting diseases and surviving in our climatic conditions, thus the push for promoting the use of local and naturalized varieties.
Our challenge is we need to be able to find niche markets that understand our production systems. Because we are all natural, because most of our orchards, they flower and they fruit naturally, you find that the production of mangoes in our territory is seasonal. So we need to be able to find markets that understand that seasonality and that is willing to work with us so that when the fruits come into season, they are willing to purchase it from us, as against trying to work with markets that require us to supply them on a monthly or fortnightly basis, which we may not be able to meet, and that may cause problems with supply and demand.
There used to be a huge demand for mangoes from St. Lucia in the regional and international markets 2 or 3 decades ago. Although the mango seed weevil and the fruit fly have seriously impacted that trade, there is still some export being done.
Now, in terms of exports, for last year, there was about 47 tons. As you're aware, prior to that, there were a lot of exporters of mangoes, but that has dwindled over the years. Right now, there are just about 3 or 4 exporters of mangoes in St. Lucia.
the dreaded fruit fly and mango seed weevil still plague the industry and are hindering exports.
The mango seed weevil has been around for quite some time. I think it was discovered sometime in the 1930s in the Caribbean. But it only took prominence because it's an insect that lives in the seed. In fact, it infects the mango at a very small stage of the fruit, like the pebble size. But it goes and it penetrates inside the seed and it's quiesced in that area until the mango grows and develops. And then when the mango drops on the ground, then it comes out of the seed.
Mr. Pilgrim says the mango seed weevil does not affect the quality of the fruit, but its presence in the seed is a major deterrent. Then there is the fruit fly, which plagues the mangoes and has caused the United States to ban all mango imports from St. Lucia.
Fruit fly is in all the islands in the Caribbean. What has happened is that it only affects certain fruits in St. Lucia. We have not seen any fruit fly in mangoes in St. Lucia. But because it exists in the country, in fact, it is more prevalent in the hog plum and plums and this kind of thing. But because it is present, the Americans are very concerned people when it comes to the insects being transferred to the country. So you find that they put up a barrier against it also.
The United States is increasingly setting higher food safety standards and demanding very detailed information on actual farming conditions where the crop is grown and harvested. They focus on minute details.
In this age of what we call trade liberalization, it all, everything comes down to what we call SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary measures. These are conditions that the country set for allowing commodities to enter the market, and they are very strict about it. In fact, the United States consider that it's a question of defense. It's like war.
This means if we are to export mangoes to the United States, for example, there is a lot of work to be done to meet standards and expectations. Farming practices must change.
The consumer in Europe, in the United States, in this information age, they are very informed. They want every bit of information pertaining to what they consume, even though it is processed. So I don't think that if we say we're going to process something that it's a way out, for us to consider that we can grow it anyhow, we can come from anywhere. Not so.
Best practice on the farm is required if those diseases are to be brought under control. It is particularly difficult with mangoes grown in the wild, but focused care is needed to get the seed weevil and the fruit fly infestation under control.
Caribbean people or St. Lucians, per se, do not have a culture of pruning fruit trees. You need to prune the mango trees, just like the breadfruit tree. You need to prune them to bring it down to a level, right, where it's easily picked. The mango fruit can easily be picked to allow ventilation and reduce the humidity within the foliage, and also to spray when you're spraying, because with these tall trees you cannot go up there with a mist blower to spray.
We encourage farmers in proper fertilization. We make recommendations for pruning and pest and disease control, and that service is available to the farmer free of charge.
In working with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Extension officers and our farmers, there is no doubt that we have to utilize climate-smart agriculture. We need to recognize that climate change is impacting on us, impacting on the agriculture sector, and we need to utilize the pluses and the minuses of climate change towards getting the best that we can out of the situation that we are faced with.
The renewed focus on planting mango trees is not only good for the environment, but also for the economy and for the island's food security.
So we're talking food security here because climate change is going to affect agriculture. It's going to affect water supply. Tree cover helps to protect your water supply. It helps to maintain biodiversity. And the fact that we have so many different varieties of mango helps to maintain, helps to maintain our biodiversity in that context as well.
In fact, it's called the king of the fruits because it's used not just for eating, and it's not just an economic plant, it's good medicinally for the skin, for the eyes, good for purging as a laxative, mild laxative to help bowel movements, and so many other uses that the plant has.
For example, vitamin A is very important for our vision. We need vitamin A for beautiful skin, for our mucous membranes, and vitamin A is also an antioxidant. And we know that antioxidants help to prevent cancer. It helps to scavenge the body of what you call free radical damage, preventing damage in our body, and so that helps prevent cancer. So that makes mangoes very nutritious. You also have vitamin B6 in mangoes, and the role that vitamin B6 plays in the body is that it helps to control what you call homocysteine levels. Homocysteine is like an amino acid. It's a compound that if it's too high in the body, it can actually cause heart attacks. Mangoes are also high in potassium. Potassium helps to control our blood pressure, also helps with our controlling our heart rate.
The green mango skin is a good source of fiber. However, ripe, sweet mangoes must be consumed in moderation, especially during the mango season.
And the reason being is because they're having too many mangoes, and so of course it will raise the blood sugar levels. But if you're having mangoes within a balanced diet, that should not happen.
Mangoes can be used in making sorbets, sauces, and mango cakes, among a long list of creative uses to which the fruit